Hey everyone, my name is Jessica and I am here to talk about cross stitch today. I have a few things that I want to talk about in today's vlog. It's been a while. I've done a lot of stitching, so a little bit of a catch up on what I've been stitching on, some progress there. I also have this pile of WIPs right here that I want to go through as a mini WIP parade. They're under 10 WIPs, so not a ton, but it'd be fun just to pull them all out and take a look at them, since I'm pretty sure some of these haven't gotten progress in 2025, or at least one of them I don't think got progress in 2025. And so do the WIP parade, we'll talk about what I've been stitching on, and then I also want to do a little bit of chatting about my 2026 plans. I don't have a lot of personal stitching goals for 2026, but I do have some goals in regards to my cross stitch business and pattern design. So I'm going to mention those briefly, chat about those. I will put chapters in the YouTube, I don't know what it's called, in the YouTube description and on the video, so you can skip forward on any sections that aren't interesting to you. Oh, and I will have a color picking segment at the end of the video. This is actually the second time I'm filming this first section of the video because I forgot my mic in my first attempt and only remembered it for the color picking, or it wasn't plugged in correctly, so it wasn't working, and I just figured it's faster to refilm this than try and edit the audio. We'll see. This should be faster, I think, in the long run. But yes, there will be a color picking segment at the end of this video. It is very long. It's picking for one of my new patterns, and I was kind of rambling throughout it, so I just kept most of it. And if it's not something you're interested in, I won't be talking about any other like cross stitch plans or pulling out any other projects once that color picking starts, so you can end the video there if you like. But let's get started with the WIP parade. Okay, so let me pull this over. I have one goal with my WIPs for this year, and that is just to not start any WIPs or any projects that have this sort of stitching style. I've done a really good job over 2025, like whipping down and making sure I'm not starting WIPs when I have a similar style WIP in my WIP pile already. And this is like the one style of WIP I have remaining where I have multiple of that style, and I just don't ever, or there are times where I want to stitch on this like mirabilia, dimensions, like full coverage subject where there's a lot of back stitching, some blends, beading, more detailed type stitching. So I do occasionally want to stitch this sort of stuff, but it's very infrequent. And because I'm stitching so many models of my own patterns, I end up not getting around to these bigger projects or not picking them back up again. So that's my main personal stitching goal, is just to not start any new projects that are of this style of stitching. They have a very similar feel to me, at least. So this one is Muka though. It's a pretty big mirabilia. I think it's one of the larger ones. I'm not sure. I know there are a couple that are like super, super big, but I have a good chunk done. I probably have 50% at this point because I think I have half the pattern, this half, finished, except for the beading and back stitching. But I still have a huge chunk right here of the fairy, like her body and the wings coming out right there. I did pull this out at the beginning of the year for 2 or 3 days and had a great time stitching it. I was able to get this little section in. But yeah, then that feeling passed and I no longer want to stitch this style of cross stitch, and that's fine. But I'm just recognizing that now, even though I love the looks of mirabilia and I love the beading of the mirabilias or the Nora Corbetts. I actually haven't beaded a mirabilia yet, but I love the beading, so I think it makes me want to start more of these types of projects. But I just don't love this section as much, the cross stitching, on a regular basis at least. But this is on the called for. It's a 32 count Witchelt in the color Water Lily. I'm using all the called for flosses, the Caron Water Lilies, and the DMC. There are no metallics in this one, which is nice. And I will eventually do all the beading in the called for as well, but I'm a ways away because this is so big. I really do need to finish all the cross stitching first before I do the beading, because I have a frame I think that'll work, or a like Q-snap that I can put different parts together to make it fit this, but I don't think that would be fun to stitch on for the cross stitching, so I'm just saving it all for the beading. I'm gonna go ahead and show off the other two projects that I think are very similar to Muka, like the stitching style, and one of them is this Dimensions kit. It's a Dimensions Gold. It's called Magnificent Wizard. It's a retired kit, but it's not too difficult to find it on eBay. It pops up pretty frequently, I think. At least when I was on eBay searching for wizard patterns, it was coming up quite a bit. I switched out the kit fabric to a 20 count Ada by Fiber on a Whim in the color Night Sky. And I got a little bit of progress this year. I think I stitched this area in, but yeah, I wasn't reaching for this very often. It's probably, I think it is my least favorite WIP of all of my WIPs. And that's because the pattern is very hard to read, in my opinion. It's very small, and I do like that the Dimensions Gold have color coding, like they have red symbols, green symbols, and blue symbols, and black, to help differentiate the different symbols in the pattern, but still, it's difficult. It's difficult. This one and Muka, I have to use a highlighter on my physical patterns because there's just no way of keeping track where everything is, whereas normally I don't use highlighters for samplers. There's few enough colors and the symbols are different enough that I never feel like I'm losing my spot in a pattern, but I think that's what holds me up with the Dimensions, and like the Muka is just, I don't like highlighting. I don't like spending that time, so doing that sort of thing, so it doesn't get stitched on, it doesn't get picked up. But here it is. It is really pretty. I do like the pattern itself. I just wish it was more fun to stitch. This next WIP I have here is Korok. The artwork is by Hannah Alexander and it is charted by Make It Pink. It's another, full coverage subject, lots of back stitching. I'm not sure if this one has blends, but it does have a ton of partial stitching. Way more than Mirabilia's. Way more than the Dimensions as well. So lots of partials. I don't know if you can even see those in there, but tons of little partial stitches in there. I'm stitching this on a Picture This Plus linen. It's either 28 count or 32 count. I'm not certain, but it's in the color Carnival. I'm doing 2/2 for this one, and all the called for floss. So those were my three oldest WIPs. I think, yeah, the Wizard was started in 2023, so that's my oldest WIP. Some of my bigger WIPs as well. That was kind of at the beginning of my cross stitch journey. When I started cross stitch, it was in 2022, so I was still starting a lot of big WIPs, not really realizing how long they take to stitch, But I've gotten better and more realistic in my cross stitching goals. But I'd like to get it down to one. I don't know if that'll happen. One of those three WIPs, I don't know if that'll happen this year, but I could see myself finishing at least the Korok. It's kind of small. And maybe Muka, just because it is getting so close and it's getting close to the beading and I like doing the beading. But also I'm not really setting a goal to do that because I really focus on my models and my pattern making anyway, and that's more fun to me than those patterns are in this moment, at least. This next WIP is not even on my WIP list right now because after I've stitched a section, I consider it complete for a little bit, and it'll go back on the WIP list when I'm ready to stitch some more in. I don't even have many, I think I might have like 1 or 2 blocks designed right now, but I go through phases where I'm interested in designing little video game blocks to put on here and then stitch them in. This one is my video game sampler, and then I also have one that I'm making for my husband. This is on a 40 count Fiber on a Whim linen in the color Moonstone. And then this one is Picture This Plus 40 count in the color Glory. And I'm doing it in, for this one, I'm pulling from these two rings for the colors. A lot of pretty jewel tone DMC. I really like this color palette. So this is the color palette for this one, and then I have this ring for the other sampler. All right, next up is a very recent start. I think it was in the last vlog even, but this is it even a cross stitch WIP? Not really. It's mostly specialty stitches in here, a little bit of cross stitch. It doesn't have a pattern. I'm just going to be randomly placing thread and different types of stitching in this flower center and turning this into a patch for a bag. But hasn't gotten any progress since you've last seen it. I have been so focused on my model, which I've now finished, and I'll show you that at the end of the WIP parade, but I have been so focused on that I haven't really been doing any other stitching, with the exception of a birthday start and then working on Muka a little bit. But most of my winter break was spent on my model. But here this is on a 40 count Fiber on a Whim linen in the color Hibiscus. All right, this little pattern, this was a lot of fun. I have really enjoyed stitching on this. It is a free pattern that I've designed. It's on my Ko-Fi. It's based on the show Over the Garden Wall. And I don't know, I worked on this a lot in October, and I kind of just want to save it until next fall because it feels like a very fall stitch to me, even though the colors are not super fall colors. But because this is based on the show Over the Garden Wall, it just gives me a very fall feeling. And I think it'll be fun to save it for next fall, next October, and continue stitching on it then. I have a pretty sizable chunk complete. I think this is the halfway point here, and I want to say it goes up to here, so pretty good chunk. I don't know if I can finish it in 2026 though. This is on a 40 count linen because that's like all I stitch on. That's my favorite linen count at the moment. It's by a dyer called Wabi Sabi, and it's in the color Freckles. All right, so that was all of the WIPs that I had going into 2026. I have started this birthday start, and I'm actually planning on restarting it. Not because there was any problem with the pattern, of course. The pattern is great. The pattern is called Woodland Whimsy Sampler, and it's by the Marigold Needle. And it's a really interesting two-tone sampler. Very monochromatic feel to it, but obviously it has two colors in it, and it's charted for two colors. I am swapping out the two colors for a lot of colors, though. I'm going to be stitching one of the colors in this brown gold orangey mix right here, and then the other color I will be swapping around with these flosses, some pinks, red, purples, and some greens. And I'm really looking forward to it. I only got 1 day of stitching on it, and that's because this fabric is just too perfumey for me. The XJU fabrics, whatever detergent the dyer uses, it does have this slight perfume scent to it, but this is the first time where it's been so strong that I'm worried about like getting headaches from it, because certain scents, strong ones, do give me headaches. So I only stitched on it one night. I got this progress right here. It's also a little bit too tone on tone right there. It's kind of ghosting. So what I think I'm gonna do is I will use this fabric, but I need to wash it, I think. It's been airing out for over a week now and it still has a very strong scent to it. So I want to wash it to try and get some of that scent out, but I will need to pick this out anyway because I don't think that these over dyes are color fast. So I need to pick it out anyway, which means I'll be starting over and I might as well try out a new fabric while I'm at it. Something that might work better with these brown colors on it. This is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking of switching it to this. This is also XG Designs and it's dark khaki, another 40 count, but this one is not nearly, like it does not have this strong scent like this one. So, oh, this is Morning Coffee. If you're wondering, that's the Morning Coffee. So I'm going to swap to this, try it out on this. I think it'll work better given my colors and I won't have to worry about getting headaches while stitching it. It's kind of a bummer, but it'll be fine. I will, hopefully when I wash this, it won't change the texture of it because I really do like the feel of the linen and it's not stiff, but it's not as floppy as some linens. Like the Picture This Plus has a very like springy feel to it when you're stitching, which can make it difficult to stitch on if I don't have it very, very drum tight, but this one doesn't have that same springiness to it, so I find it easier and nicer to stitch on the XG Designs fabric. I'm not sure when I'm going to be able to restart this though. So like I said, I'm refilming this, and since filming I have started another model, which you'll see the color picking for that model at the end of this video. So I'm working on that and really enjoying that. I will probably, I don't know if I'll take a break at some point to start this or just save it until after the model's finish as my kind of in-between model stitching. I am going to try my best this year to not jump straight into model after model stitching wise, just so it doesn't feel like so go, go, go. And I don't know. I think it'll be nice to have a little break in between models, do some personal stitching. It'll also help with just not stressing about having everything ready when a model is done. I can just pick up something else instead of, you know, making sure I have all the colors and fabric and everything picked out and ready to go right when I'm done with a model. Yeah, a little bit more relaxed feel I'm hoping for with my cross stitch business and model stitching. So that is the fun Woodland Whimsy sampler. So those are all of my WIPs that I have coming out of 2025. I guess this model is technically, or was technically, a WIP. I finished this on my actual birthday and then was able to start the Woodland Whimsy sampler. But here is what I've been working on for most of the winter break, for the past month it seems like, feels like. This is Pink Rin. I showed a little speed paint of this section down here in a previous video, and then it grew into this. It turned out a lot different. The pattern turned out a lot different than what I was originally envisioning for it. I always had the idea that I wanted it to be a banner and that I wanted it to match this shape of the flower stems, but I wasn't thinking I was going to make it so intricate on the borders. But I was just designing the pattern, having fun, doodling all this stuff in the margins basically of the art. But I like it. I like how it turned out. I restrained myself in the middle, just putting these few motifs following like in a shape that matches kind of the placement of the birds, like flows through it. It's very nice. I like it. This is on a 40 count Roxy Floss fabric, linen, in the color French Hen, and it uses all DMC. The DMC floss ring is not as satisfying as they used to be because I am trying something new with my master set where when I pull out a color from the master set, instead of taking the whole color with me and off of the rings, the color family rings, I have been pulling a couple strands and putting them on like a temporary floss drop card for stitching. So yeah, the ring doesn't have as much bulk as they usually do, and you can't see the colors as easily in the ring. But it has some like super light yellow, lavender, pink. It has a lot of browns and pinks, some darker brown and burgundy. It's just a really, really pleasant palette for this time of year, or it was really pleasant for what I was feeling at the moment, which was wanting to stitch pink. I think I'm in kind of a pink brown phase because this is also has the browns and the pinks in it. And then the Trillium Forest, which I will show the color picking for, that has pinks, not as much as the browns, but it has some of the pinks, purples, reddish colors in it. I'm just going through a phase where those are the types of colors I want to be using in my patterns and in my stitching. But yeah, this is not going to be released for a while. So let me show you one more thing, and then I will talk more about like release schedule and idea and 2026 plans, that sort of stuff. So let me show you this one. You've already seen it if you've been watching my vlogs. This is Pansy Picnic. I stitched this last year and it's still unfinished, of course. It is a new to me finishing style. Since filming that vlog, I've learned that this type of finishing is called a mattress finish, mattress cushion. I'm actually not sure of the exact terminology. It's like a pillow, mattress cushion, something like that. But there's a top here, a bottom, and these are the sides. They'll all get cut out, and you'll use these back stitch borders to sew the little pieces together, create a seam, like a Biscornu finishing, or I guess it wouldn't be like a pillow finishing. I mean, I finished some of my small pillows and ornaments like that, but I don't think that's as common. But Biscornu is like something that's very common that would have a similar feel where you're stitching a seam between these two backstitch borders. And you connect everything, stuff it, and it's like a flat little pin cushion, basically. But obviously not finished. I'm going to commit? Am I committing to finishing this? I guess so. I do want this to be a release this spring. When I release the pink Rin, I want this to be one of the releases that I have as well. This is on a 40 count hydrangea, fiber on a whim, a linen. And then I also have this little companion piece. It's a small little scissor fob pattern where you would make sew these two pieces together into a little pillow with a ribbon. Can put it on some scissors or whatever sort of bag you want. And this is on a 20 count Aida in the color Butternut Squash. So yes, that is going to be one of my releases. And let me talk a bit about plans for, let's see, 2026, because that is the year we're in right now. I can't believe it. Okay. So I have made this little chart for myself that maps out different steps in the pattern making process, and I'm going to try and do my quarterly releases, which I've been pretty successful with in the last part of 2025. I was sticking to that quarterly release schedule and it was working out okay. I'm still not sure. It's still kind of foreign to me, the timing of things. I still feel like I am, stitching models up until the last moment on some of these events and releases where I would rather, be a little bit more on top of it and not be stitching things right up to the very end. So part of my plans for 2026 is limiting myself to only releasing 5 patterns per quarter. I think that's a lot. It depends on the size, of course, but that is a lot of patterns. But there were some quarters in 2025. I'm thinking of the needlework marketplace quarter in particular, where I did even more than 5 releases, and that's where I really felt like it was too much. So I think if I keep to just doing 5 maximum per quarter, I will feel a lot better about the releases and not feel like as stressed about getting the patterns out. Because a lot of what I do, or what I've done in the past, is I really like the pattern making, the art part of it, the designing of it, and the stitching of it. And so I just keep doing that and avoiding the other tasks, which are like creating the PDF pattern and formatting all of that. And I put that off to the end, and then that feels very rushed, very too rushed. And really I should have been working on it earlier on in the process instead of making a new design, you know? So Q1, I showed you the pink wren, and this is Pansy Picnic. I showed you that as well. I mentioned Trillium Forest, which is what I'll color pick at the end and what I've started stitching at this point. There is like a secret one right here. This one is done. It's all finished, but I'm not talking about it yet because I'm not supposed to talk about it yet. I stitched that over winter break though. It's really cute. I really like that, how that pattern turned out, and I'll talk more about that later when I am able to talk about it. But that's the plan. That's the plan for my spring releases. I am not going to Nashville. What is it called? Nashville Needlework Market. I'm not going to be attending it. I just cannot. The travel, the transporting my models, transporting my patterns. If I could drive, it would be one thing. That would be reasonable. That would be fine. But it's the fact that it has to be on an airplane for me, and, you know, shipping through postal services. That just sounds like too much for me right now. So I'm not going to Nashville, but I am going to be releasing these patterns around the same time that Nashville happens, which is in the beginning of March. I figure all the shops are shopping at that time anyway. And I know that a lot of shops like to physically pick up their patterns at Nashville. I think that is probably the appeal to it. Yeah, I'm just going to try and, you know, slip my patterns into that mix, the pre-order chaos that happens around Nashville, and hope for the best. I'm going to be doing, at least for this release, the thing where a lot of physical pattern makers do this, where they give shops a month of like exclusivity to the patterns. I'm not going to be putting them on my Etsy and Ko-Fi as digital patterns for that first month. I don't know if that, I feel like that definitely, well, you know, I've only had 2 experiences with that so far. One of them was Marketplace back in August, and I did the exclusivity thing there, and that was successful for that, but also it was tied to an event. And then when I did my winter releases, the 11 Rabbits and I Like Cross Stitch, I didn't do the exclusivity, like 1 month period where there was only physical, but it wasn't as successful as Marketplace, but also it wasn't an event. So I don't know if I can draw any correlations about like, I do better with my physical sales and overall if I do the exclusivity period versus not. But I think with Nashville, it's kind of expected. Shops kind of expect that they will have that 1 month at least exclusivity period for physical patterns. So I'm going to do it for this one. Yeah, and we'll go from there. It might be that I just do that exclusive stuff for when there's an event happening, like a wholesale event like the Nashville or Needlework Marketplace, and then for my other releases, which are kind of out of sync with everything else, I can just do my normal digital release at the same time as physical patterns. Yeah. But the last thing I want to talk about for plans for 2026 is the Fantasy Banner series. I am going to be stitching one of those after I finish Trillium Forest. I know in previous videos I've mentioned how I wanted to do those with Patreon, and I have realized that that is just not going to work out. I finally looked at the stitch counts and how long it would take me to stitch one of those pieces up, one of those banners up, and I can't do that on a monthly basis. It's going to be at least 1 week of very focused, dedicated stitching for each of the banners. And at that rate, it would just take over my 2026 stitching. Like, I can't manage that level of stitching. And unfortunately with Patreon, you can't do any sort of, every other month billing. The only option is monthly billing. And I don't really like the idea of splitting up patterns or, not providing a pattern on 1 month. So we're just going to stick to digital releases, or I'm going to stick to digital releases for that. I'm still going to do an early bird pricing, like I was going to do a Patreon discounted pricing. So I'll have the early bird pricing when they first go up in my shop, but they're only going to be quarterly and it'll be more reasonable. And I'll still enjoy the series at the end of stitching it. What I'm going to do though is create a separate email newsletter. I'll put that sign up in the description and on my website, but it'll just be only about this fantasy banner series. And I realized I didn't explain what that is and just assumed you knew what I was talking about. The fantasy banner series is a series of patterns that are based on the Dungeons and Dragons fantasy classes. So there will be 13 of them, possibly 14, but 13 right now. And yeah, it'd be fun in the newsletter to do maybe polls if I can, or definitely some like WIP progress and letting you all know when a digital pattern is released to my shop, but it absolutely won't be necessary. The patterns will be there whether or not you join that email newsletter. It's just for anyone who wants the reminders. I'll have it available. And I think that's going to work out. I think that's the best solution I have found right now. I don't know which one to start out with. I don't know what class to start out with. I am stitching them on 4 or 5 different colors of linen. Like the whole series they'll each be on a different color, but some of them have, or I guess they're not all on a different color. There will be multiples on the same color, but I think what I'm going to do is just look at the colors and see which one looks the most appealing to me right now to stitch on after I finish Trillium Forest. So yeah, that is all I have for my plans for 2026. I do have the color picking coming up next. I'm not going to be talking about any other WIPs or cross-stitch plans or anything else during that. It is literally just me rambling about the colors that I'm picking. And I think at the end I mentioned how I'm going to swatch this and see if things changed, and things did change. So it's not even the final colors. I do end up changing like 4 different colors off screen after doing the swatching. It was quite a long color picking session for that day. It took a really long time to get it right, but they are looking great right now in the current WIP, and I'm excited to share that one in the next vlog. I am ready to do some color picking for Trillium Forest now. I realized with my previous clips that my mic receiver was not all the way plugged into my phone. I'm so bummed out. So hopefully the sound quality will improve for this little segment though. But yeah, we're here. I got some floss. I got the fabric I'm going to use, which is Old Gold by Fiber on a Whim in a 40 count linen. It's a really pretty greenish, brownish yellow color, mid-tone. It's the perfect background for this, I think. I have an almost dead iPad here, so it's plugged in. I can't really move it into frame too much. But there it is. That is the piece I'm color picking for right now. It has, the centerpiece is that trillium flower in the middle, which is a flower that's native to the area I live. And they're just really interesting look to them. They have the 3 petals at the top, the 3 leaves underneath a really long stem. I've only ever seen them a couple times while out on hikes, but they're really pretty flowers. And I put some little beetles in there too. I was in a very rainbowy mood when I was designing this. I actually think this piece originated in my sketchbook, which is not a super common occurrence, but since I started using a sketchbook again towards the end of last year, I have been trying to focus that sketchbook on just non-business related things, but occasionally stuff comes up that I think will translate really well to cross stitch, and I'm really excited to put it into cross stitch. So that was one of those pieces. I'll try and insert a little clip because I didn't bring my sketchbook down here. A little photo of the original sketch of that piece. So now let's get to color picking. I did this with Pink Rin, and I like doing this now where I print out the palette from the artwork, and I like to write down the DMC or whatever floss I'm picking as I decide on it. Keeps it a little bit more organized and a little less confusing especially when colors are close in tone. It's just easier to figure out what has been done and what still needs to be done. Let's see. This is not the most color accurate. It's just I printed it out on my fast printer, so it's not super color accurate. So I'm going to be using the screen mostly for deciding what colors go with what. So first off, I know exactly what color I think for the magenta. Is this magenta border? I'm not sure. One of these right here is what I am thinking. Do I want it to be darker? It probably needs to be a little darker just to contrast well enough with some of the other colors in there. So we're going to pull this one off. I have been color picking by pulling everything off my master sets. Like this is my master set complete. I don't have it complete for all the color families, but this one is complete. I've been pulling them off, and then after I've decided on a color, I will pull strands off and put it on the temporary floss drops that I use for stitching the piece with. So that is the darker magenta color. I'm pretty certain about that, so I'm just going to write it down. I don't want it to be too light because then it'll start to just blend too much with the red in here, the dark red. And I mean, it's probably going to end up being 666. These are not in numerical order though, so I wonder if I even have 666 in here because I use it so frequently that, oh yeah, it's just a small amount is left. That's what's going on. I probably need to buy a new skein of that at some point. 666 for the red. And then there is another tone, red tone that's a little bit more like a coral red, but it doesn't actually need to contrast super well with the 666. It's fine if it is super similar, but there is one place in the piece on this beetle right here where there is striping on his shell. Is it his shell? I don't know. That is both the 666 and that other red. So I need it to be, actually, you know what? Let me take a look at my main screen. Oh, I know what's happening. I was thinking that the palette was wrong, but it's just the printout is so, it does not match the colors on screen. This is supposed to be a pink. This is the red I'm picking for right now. That's actually more of a pink, but I don't know, a reddish pink. I think it's looking red up against this purpley color, but at times I have used this as a hot pink for sure. It's the 892. Could go a little darker with 891, but I think that's going to be too close to 666. So let's do 892. See where that gets us. I'm going to go ahead and try and find the pinky color because that is, it's going to be difficult to differentiate it from the 892. Let me see. I think I know what I need to do. I think I might need to pull something. I think I might need to pull a red that is a little bit less orange than this 666 so that I have more room in my palette to pull an orangier red and then an actual pink. Maybe we're not doing 666. Let's just pull that, and then let me find the pink, and then I can find one that goes in between the two of them, basically. Man, this is the problem with DMC, though. There isn't a good hot pink, in my opinion. They're all kind of pale and unsaturated pinks, and then the hottest pinks are more red tone, like this 892. That's why I like the zinnia for the cherry magpie piece that I did, because that is a true hot pink, in my opinion. It really reads as pink and it's really bright, but yeah, there really just isn't a good pink, and it's super annoying. So we're gonna have to like fudge it, I guess. It's going to read as pink compared to the other colors, and that's what I want. I want it to read as pink compared to the other colors. On its own, I might not consider this a super hot pink, but that's fine. As long as it's like coming across as pink in the piece compared to the other colors. So this might be too light. I might have to do some test stitching. This is another option. The 893 or the 3607, I think, are the two best choices for that pink. And then got 892. The other one is 3801. I think that's what it is. It's like a corally pink. Or sorry, corally like reddish color, 3801. I don't even know if that's what I said, but maybe. So if I do this, which I think is actually the better option than the 892, because I want the pink and the, like, this lighter red to look very different, because where they are in the piece, there's this one section where the pink is filling in that area and then the red is filling in that area, and I think it would not look right if they were too similar, especially since this side is so different with the greenish and the yellow color going in there. So we have, let's go with this. This might be too light, but I think it might work too. And then we're just going to do 871. I do wish that were a little bit more saturated, vibrant. If I do this, it has a more cool undertone to the red, and so I think it's going to help differentiate it from that lighter red. Yeah, I think this is good. And that is different enough from that. So those are my pinks and reds. Now, actually there are some lighter, there's one lighter pink, and then there's a peachy color as well. Let's see, let's write these down though. 3706. There's still this is more of a white over here, a peach, and a baby pink. So baby pink should be pretty straightforward. I don't want it to read as white though. I'm going to choose actually this for the white color, just very lightish pink. This, do I want it to be a little bit? No, I want it to be closer to white. So we're going to choose this for our white. And we're going to choose something a tiny bit darker. It's not dark enough. That is dark enough, but maybe too close to this one. See, now I'm wondering if this is not gonna, this might not work. I think this is too light. This is the problem. This is the problem with not having enough pinks. Let me pick the color I want here, and then I will go back and reassess this 3706. We could go lighter with this. It could be a brighter white. That's an option. It's not an option I love, but it is an option. Okay. How about this? Let's try over here. There's some lighter colors in here. You can probably find the peach color. These are both the same, aren't they? Yep. 3341 is always a good option. I've been using that a lot. I think for that peach color, which honestly, that doesn't even get used hardly at all in this pattern, I could actually replace that with the yellow and I think it would be fine. Or replace, yeah. Either way, the yellow with the peach or the peach with the yellow. But for now, I'll just pull this. Do I like that? Yeah. I do worry if I pick too many of these light tones, especially on the 40 count with one strand, it just sometimes looks washed out. So I'm going to go with the 3341. Kind of hopping around now, and I lost track of the pink, or I stopped looking for the pink. You know what I could do is more of a purpley light pink. That way it reads different. Like that could work, because it looks maybe different enough from this. I still think I have to darken this, but definitely that difference between the 819, that's gonna work. And then let's try for this one again. This is a 956. It needs to be 956, probably. It's just, I don't think it's going to be dark enough, that 3706. And now, like, this is not enough contrast for them to read as different colors really easily in the pattern, but I think that will be enough contrast. So let's go with that. I think that's working. 956. And then I went with 3341. Now this color, it looks like yellow here, it is not yellow. It's supposed to be kind of like a lime yellow green color. It's not going to be on that ring. Where would it be? It might be, I feel like it's darker than 18, but in that vein, once again, I don't have it. I don't even have 18 on that ring. Let me look here though. So 18 is probably too dark. We're there. 11 might be okay. 11, 17 I think is not light enough either. Maybe I do have to make it more yellow just to have more options to choose from. 12 might be okay. It's more green than I want it to be. I think I want it to be more yellow than green. I did buy all the DMC I needed for 13, the color family, DMC color family 13, because it's one that I have almost no DMC for on the ring. So I think it's going to be 12 for that yellowy green color. But this is more green than I want, but I think that is the closest I can get to what I was thinking. So we'll go with that for now. Maybe I'll change it to an actual yellow. Okay, now I can go into the greens. And I think this is supposed to be a lighter seafoam green. So teal, blue green. I want to say like 956 is what I need. Just mix this stuff. Is it 956? Or do I mean 959? I don't even see 956 on here. There's 955. I'm not seeing a 956. I think I just made that number up. I was maybe thinking 959, but actually one of these colors is probably going to work best. Something like the 954, I think is the closest. So family 10. Let's see if I have it. I don't have 954, it's not looking like, but I do have 913. That could work. Yeah, I probably have 954 somewhere in my piles. DMC. How does 913 compare? Oh, 913 is just a little bit darker than 954, so pretty much the same color. We'll just stick with that. If I really feel like it's not working and it needs to be just a tiny bit lighter, I can always go to my LNS and pick it up. But 913, and then a darker shade. I'm going to make this one bluer than it's even showing up on my screen, just to get a little more contrast. Maybe I'll just go with teal. Just change it up because there's just not a lot of options there. 3, 8, 1, 2, at least on my rings. And then for the browns, or they're not browns, they're greenish brown colors. I definitely don't have a dark enough green in here, but I do have one in here. I'm gonna go with, I really don't want to have to go to my LNS to start stitching this. I was ready to start stitching this tonight, so I want to make whatever I have work, the DMC I have on me work, if I can. I guess I can always start it and just skip over the colors, but I don't like doing that if I can avoid it. Let's see. It's okay if this is kind of green. I think that would still be nice, even though it's not what my artwork looks like. I feel like everything I have is either too dark or too light. I need something in the middle. It's a little more desaturated, like this is too saturated. It needs to be more gray, green. Take a look again here. Because there's usually the colors that are the 3012, 3011. I feel like that is closer to what I am looking for. And I 100% have those colors because I use them all the time. It's just because I use them all the time, I think they're not on my rings. This is number 12. Let me go grab my leftover DMC. I think these are actually colors from Blueberry J that never got put away. Colors that I used for picking stuff, or the colors that got rejected during Blueberry J. So I bet they're in here somewhere, like this color right here, yeah, 3011. And then lighter, that's too light. I don't see anything in here. Oh, maybe this will work. The 733 might be good. Let me pull that out. Some other random colors. Okay. This is going to be exactly like the fabric. That's not going to work. So I'm going to do this for the darker green. I don't know. Now I'm kind of leaning towards it being more of a green than a brown green. Yeah. Maybe I do like that. Okay. Let's take that away. Sometimes I just have to see it next to the other stuff, and then I change my mind. So we're going to do this for the dark green. It is maybe too close to, like, in value to the 915. But I don't know that that really presents a problem. I think that that will still work out, given where that green is located in the pattern. Is this the same color? 9. Oh, this is not exactly the same, darker. Okay. Then let's do the light green in B, or the light brownish color, brown green. And then we can be finished. And I can start doing some swatching and maybe start stitching on this. Yeah, I think in my artwork, the background is not as dark as the actual fabric, and it was a little bit, on the screen it's showing as a little bit more of a tan color as opposed to what it is in reality. It's a little bit greenish and closer to, basically these two colors are too close to the actual fabric color. I don't want it to be too bright, too saturated, because I want the other colors to be standing out more than these greens. They're more of just supporting casts, not the main attraction. Okay, do I have everything? I think so. I should write these down. So we have the greeny blue colors. I guess this one can count as that too. No yellow anymore, but I think that works out. I think it's gonna look cool with this. It doesn't need to have yellow. I could always try it out. Well, now I'm curious. Let's pull the yellow ring again and see how it looks against all the other colors and see if I like it better than the DMC 12. Because I could just choose 444 is like super bright. And it's very similar to this one. But where is 444? And now I'm questioning if 444 even exists. Okay, not crazy, it does exist, but I must not have it on the ring. I think 444 and 973, yeah, they're right next to each other, very close in color. The 444 is just a little bit darker, so this is pretty close to that. Do I like that more than the green? It's gonna be yellow or this lime green? You know, I don't really know. I think I can... No, okay, I think I like the lime green better. Yeah, because I like the yellow with the warmer colors, and the pinks and reds. But then next to the teals and the greens, I don't like it as much, whereas this lime green works for all the colors for me. So we're going to go with the 12, keep it at that. I might have to do adjustments to this palette. I'll do a swatch like I usually do and test what some of the colors look up like next to each other when they're actually stitched up. And I might need to make adjustments afterwards. This one is a little bit worrying to me because in my artwork, this color is much more saturated. It almost looks fluorescent on the screen, like a neon blue-green. So it's disappointing that there isn't something that matches that. But I think, like, compared to the darker color, it'll stand out. It'll stand out. It's just, I always have to adjust my expectations when it comes to picking DMC, because it's just, you have to work within the palette. And a lot of times I go really bright and saturated on my screen. That's where I'm going to end it for now. This is the final palette for the time being, unless something comes up with my swatch test and I need to make some adjustments. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in the next one, and Happy New Year. Bye.